Can you see my screen?
Yes, Judy, we can see your screen.
Thank you. Okay. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here today. And welcome to our first webinar of 2026, which also is the webinar that we use to launch the trends, sustainable tourism trends for every year. Happy New Year and blessings for the rest of 2026. May tourism thrive responsibly. May you find, may your paths be easy in 2026. And at the end of the day, may you find peace with how you have stewarded tourism in 2026. If you are joining us for the first time, this webinar is hosted by Sustainable Travel and Tourism Africa. My name is Judy Kepher Gona for today. Just a little about Sustainable Travel and Tourism Africa, also known as STTA. We are a leading catalyst for sustainable tourism transformation systems across Africa through research, advocacy, strategic facilitation that includes trainings, conferences, webinars, student seminars. That's what we refer to as strategic facilitation. STTA empowers communities, youth and women, and governments, all of this and all actors in the tourism space to embed sustainability into tourism systems and by extension, practice. Today, this webinar, the objective of it is to launch our predictions of sustainable tourism trends in 2026. The goal at the end of it, why we do this public launch, is that we want from an onset to frame a collective accountability or a collective responsibility towards what we do with tourism in 2026, and also as we move towards 2030. Those of you who were here in 2025 will remember that I started the countdown to the year of accountability, which is 2030. Started the countdown last year as 5 years to the year of accountability. Before we blink, we are here in 2026, and now we are talking 4 years to the year of accountability, which is the year 2030. And for those who are not familiar with the year 2030, this is the year of accountability for the Sustainable Development Goals. And we are here saying today that as we do tourism as practitioners, wherever you are at, you're an investor, you're an operator, you're a policymaker, you're a community steward, you're a biodiversity manager, whatever it is, you're a cultural heritage manager, where you are at in tourism today, we are challenging all of us to start becoming truly accountable ahead of 2030, which is our year of accountability. Today, we are launching the Sustainable Tourism Trends to Watch in 2026. And I want to say that while these trends may be inclined towards Africa based on our sources of information, which I wish to declare, they include World Bank reports, reports from Africa Development Bank, they include reports from UN Tourism, they include reports from World Economic Forum, they include reports from other renowned tourism agencies. They include reports from African Union and what is happening in tourism in the continent. We have drawn from European organizations that are championing sustainable tourism in the continent. And so what you are seeing is a merger of all these trends, but with a strong inclination towards Africa and what we can do best as a continent. I am excited today that our audience is very diverse. From the registrations, I think we got close to 100 people who expressed interest. And we saw that from that interest, tourism surely has a wide diversity of operators, from industry leaders to policymakers, academics, students, communities, sector professionals. We have seen people in climate, we have seen people in blue tourism, people in forestry, people in mountain culture, heritage tourism. All sector professionals had registered for this webinar today. And we are excited for those who have made it. The beauty about registration is that it enables us to share what we have done, what we have shared today with even those who are not able to make it in person. And some people said it so that they're registering because they want to receive the information. Ladies and gentlemen, I repeat that with only 4 years, the year of accountability, we cannot overlook consolidation. Consolidation has become very critical, and we will see why it's critical in just a moment. We need to consolidate efforts. The industry cannot afford to remain fragmented in its approaches to sustainable development of tourism. We have seen a lot of fragmentation in the industry over the years, with pockets of sustainability taking place in different segments, with the tour operators having a tour operator scheme, hoteliers having one here, the north, the divide between the global north and the global south is very evident. We have what is considered a global standard, like the Global Sustainable Tourism Council. But when you look at the uptake of Sustainable Travel Tourism Council in its accreditation, you see inequalities between the global north and the global south, and it's very evident. It's very wide. It's so wide. It's an example of the fragmentations that I'm talking about, and why we need to move to a point of consolidation, so that when we say that something is sustainable, it is truly understood by the consumer, it is understood by the operator, it is understood in the same way. This is what we're talking about, consolidation. When we report on sustainability, when we win an award, we want it to be a global, an understanding, a sector understanding of exactly what we're talking about. So that requires that tourism actors must be intentional. They must intentionally demonstrate, right, what they mean by net positive impact of tourism. Because at the end of the day, that is the outcome of sustainable tourism. A lot of times we talk about, oh, we are sustainable, we're doing this practice, we're doing that practice. But the big question we should be asking ourselves is, what is the impact? And as we move towards 2030, we must intentionally be able to report net positive impacts of operations. It's no longer enough to say that we are doing this. It's no longer enough. Let me use this example not to demean it. It's no longer enough to say that we are giving our guests reusable bottles. So what? What is the net positive impact of doing this? If you are intentional, you will be able to collect the background data on this, why you are doing it and what you are doing and for what, with what implications, right? So this net positive impact that I'm talking about must therefore be verifiable and must have validated data. I want us to take note of these keywords that we're talking about. We're talking consolidation. We're talking intentional. The industry must become intentional. We're talking about net positive impact, and we're talking about verifiable and validated data. We must move away in this last 4 years from generalized claims of sustainability that are not verifiable, that are not backed by validated data. As we sit here, as we join in this webinar this afternoon, is it already afternoon? I want to remind us one thing, that sustainability, the conversations did not start yesterday. The conversations have been here with us since 1992. Since 1992 at the Earth Summit, when the world leaders made a global commitment that development was going to be guided by certain value-based principles. And that gave birth to the concept of sustainable development. It is the first time that unanimously global leaders decided that this is the direction to go. So we're not talking something new. Even when we're talking accountability, in 4 years, our accountability should have started in 1992 for all sectors and all segments of economic development. But this journey from 1992, the discourse around sustainable development since 1992, it's been shaped by many different things, but it's been shaped by geopolitics, and that has played a very key role, and it has made progress in certain areas and stagnation and caused stagnation in other areas. So geopolitics cannot be taken out of the sustainable development discourse. Economic development cannot be taken out of it. The status of nations, the GDP of countries, their aspirations, their levels of development, of education, of technology. And that's why technology, science, and innovation have become key drivers of the sustainable development discourse. And where science is leading, where technology is leading, and where innovation is leading, we see an increased uptake, a higher level of accountability. We see higher levels of responsibility. So even as we speak today, whatever trends we're talking about today, we must agree that they are underpinned to a large extent by technology, science, innovation, and if I may add, capital. They're all critical. All these trends that we're talking about even today are underpinned by science, technology, innovation, and capital, right? But we have seen also since 1992 that there has been persistent inequalities. There has been persistent extractive systems in tourism and other industries. There has been persistent fragmentation, which I spoke about right from the beginning. And this continues to challenge tourism in a big way, particularly the fragmentation continues to challenge sustainable tourism in a big way. Communities remain at a crossroads. Everybody talks about them. Everybody's doing something little about them. But if you measure their level of progress over the years, how they have progressed from quote unquote inclusion and integration approaches, whether they're in policy or they're private sector driven, you can see that the pace has been so slow. Why have they been left behind, despite being the core parts of the sustainable tourism discourse? I'm not saying that progress has not been made. I'm just saying that the pace of that progress probably needs to increase in the next 4 years. And we'll be seeing why stewardship is important in this move towards bringing this core and be able to show the value, not just remaining at the core of sustainability, but also demonstrating the value that has been created by having communities at the core of sustainable tourism discourse. Ecosystems are still under threat, even in tourism destinations where sustainable tourism knowledge is not new, where we have practice, where we have policies, where we have laws, we still see that ecosystems are under threat. And last but not least, I want to mention that as we sit here today, there is a challenge and issue with trust in impact data. And we're probably talking a time when where technology and innovation and science are not leading, there is a big issue with trust on impact data that is being used to report sustainability. And I can be open and say that this is a challenge. This is a challenge for Africa. The continent has a big challenge with providing dependable, credible data, impact data on where sustainable tourism is today. Yeah, so data credibility is a challenge for the season. Now, before we move, I want to give a quick overview of what happened with the 2025 Sustainable Tourism Trend. Sorry for that in this interruption, but we felt like we should talk about this as well. What happened with the 2025 trends? And I'm going to use Kenya as a case study in a very quick review of the 2025 sustainable tourism trends. You will be able to find, maybe in another 2 days, a comprehensive overview of these trends on our website and other media. So on your screen, if you're there with me, we can see the trends that we spoke about in 2025, that they were going to drive discourse and practice around sustainable development of tourism. Number one on that list was collaborative partnerships. If we look at Kenya in terms of collaborative partnerships for sustainable development of tourism, we know that partnerships are actually meant to accelerate impact. Partnerships are also meant to bring down barriers so that we can have more players and entrants in tourism. Collaborations are also meant to open up new places so that we can diversify tourism opportunities and also minimize impact in popular places that are popular or well-developed destinations. So if we look at within Kenya, we can see that good effort has been made. Particularly, we are looking at what the Kenya Tourism Board has been doing, the collaborations with county governments in different parts of Kenya to open up new areas through the Tembea Kenya initiative. And so these joint destination promotion and development initiatives have been on the increase in the country as we speak now. I believe there is another a group of influencers out there, marketers out there, trying to open up some other parts of Kenya in the Rift Valley for tourism and to show the beauty and opportunities that are available. So yes, there has been progress in terms of status, and I think it is beginning to look like it's sustained. So it was not a one-off, and we can say collaborative partnerships for sustainable development of destinations in Kenya is happening with the collaboration of Kenya Tourism Board and the county governments. We have also seen extended collaborations, private sector and community collaborations through conservancies in Kenya. This did not start last year. This has been ongoing, and we can see the impact of it. There are regions where this is very well developed. I'm excited to see what is happening in Taita Taveta County. If you have a chance, maybe you follow Taita Taveta Wildlife Conservancy Association, a region, a giant that was sleeping for a long time, where communities did not benefit from tourism for a long time. In the last 5 years, have seen a tremendous opening up of the area and community tourism through the collaborations, the development, enhancement of conservancies that used to be there. And we are seeing that communities are beginning to benefit from tourism in those areas. Not to mention that as we sit here today, there are more than 100 community conserved areas in Kenya. Most of them are managed through collaborations, private-public partnerships. And so collaborative partnerships are redistributing tourism benefits to the communities, through the communities conserved areas. You can look at Masai Mara Wildlife Conservancies Association, Laikipia Wildlife Conservancies Association in the northern area. They're good, and also Amboseli. They're good case studies of how to look at partnerships for redistribution of tourism opportunities together with communities. So we can say in a nutshell, there's also the engagement of several NGOs supporting that space, especially working with communities. So we have done well in this, and we are seeing that it is a trend that will continue It's not only in Kenya. We have seen these collaborative partnerships in a lot of wildlife tourism destinations in Eastern and Southern Africa, and they are actually transforming and integrating communities in tourism. What remains, what we found out from our analysis is that there are still institutional gaps when it comes to this kind, particularly the community partnerships, private partnerships. There's still issues with partnership contracts, a few challenges here and there, and the monitoring of the outcomes is also something that needs to be consolidated. We know the Kenya Wildlife Conservancies Association is doing a great job in that particular area, and the lessons can be consolidated and shared as well. When we come to green marketing campaigns, in terms of status, in Kenya's case, we can say that it is evolving and unstructured, right? It is evolving and unstructured. Kenya Tourism Board introduced the Green One Tourist, One Tree campaign. I think the campaign was introduced in 2024. It was mainly focused on tree planting and is aligned to a national goal of 15 billion trees. But within the tourism industry, we can't see any traction other than the announcement of it or pronouncement of it. We don't see any traction. We have not seen a report. We spoke to a number of people in the industry, operators, and asked them whether they knew how to implement or operationalize this campaign within their companies. And they say they have no idea how this campaign is supposed to work. They don't know where the trees are supposed to be planted, whether it's a designated place. They don't know whether guests are supposed to make a contribution or actually plant a tree. There is no dashboard where that information is available and where they can report their information. So that there is a challenge with this campaign, and I believe that it could be the same with a number of countries in the region. In managing green marketing campaigns needs good technology. You need technology to work for you and work very well. So as a country, if we were using that as Kenya as a measure, we would say that this is evolving at very early stages and very little has been achieved to even comment much on it, other than to report that it remains challenging, right? Trend number 3 in 2025 was a spotlight on the SDGs. This was about tourism industry beginning to adopt SDG reporting because of the proximity to the year of accountability for the goals. But this has not accelerated in terms of status. We can say it's evolving. It's evolving. The greatest evidence we have is for Kenya is that the new national tourism strategy, right, has mapped out some actions in that strategy that are aligned to the SDG. But overall, we see more of private sector leadership with different organizations reporting on their sustainability impact. So at a national level, other than the mention that we have seen and the mapping in the national tourism strategy, key specific actions to highlight the SDGs as as a framework of accountability for the destination or for the sector has not come out very clearly, even as we are in 2026. So we shall be observing to see what happens with that. When it comes to advocacy for transparency in green certification or eco certification, we can say that the status is that it's emerging. Why are we saying it's emerging? It's emerging because we have seen in the last year increased public debate on greenwashing. We have seen increased public interest in protection of spaces and places, particularly here in Kenya. in the last quarter of 2025, we had a lot of discourse in social media about tourism development standards. How should they develop? Where should they go? Who should claim that a brand is leading? How is a leading brand supposed to operate? So we saw a lot of public debate, which means there is great awareness, there is advocacy for transparency and accountability in the development of tourism, and that should extend to certification as well. When we narrow it down to tourism operators and private sector, we can say it's still emerging because only a handful of operators are publicly publishing their third-party verified sustainability reports. Third-party verified, because we have many reports that are not third-party verified that are being shared. Remember, I talked about data credibility from the beginning, and that our impact must be backed by credibility of data. We are seeing a handful of operators that are sharing third-party verified sustainability reports. A number of operators are inward-looking. They are mentioning what they're doing without any verifiable data in it. So we still need to do a lot when it comes to transparency in green certifications. We've also seen from the public sector in Kenya, the Tourism Regulatory Authority is actually hosting industry consultations on having national standards for eco certification. So that is a good thing from the public sector as well, that these conversations are going on, and that they want to come up with a national framework that can encompass and take care of every other form of certification, especially the voluntary certifications that we have today in the country. So that is the status. It's emerging. There is strong public sector interest. Private sector is beginning to show accountability through public publishing of their reports. Number 5 was intra-regional travel, and I think this is growing in the region. We have seen policy shifts in visa in the continent in Africa that has opened up the continent. Maybe much of it will be seen for Kenya in the coming year, because in 2025 there was big policy shifts on visa for African countries by Kenya. I know other countries have done the same. Rwanda has good visa-free policies as well, and we can predict that in the coming years that there will be a lot of intra-Africa travel. I think the airspaces remains a restriction, air travel, for many challenges that we have all read about in media. But overall, the borders are opening, the barriers are being reduced, and intra-regional travel is growing. For Kenya, we know that in the last few years, Uganda has remained one of the strong regional source markets for Kenya because of open borders, and also because of the collaboration through what is called the Kenya-Uganda Coast Tourism Forum that has encouraged Ugandan operators and Kenyan operators to mutually sell these destinations. Impact investments remains in very nascent early stages. We have not seen impact investors in the tourism space, even with working with the communities. We have a few cases, we have a few known ones that are operating at the moment, but this is a space that is still remains to be opened up and exploited. And we, from our analysis, we looked at policy pathways and probably concluded that maybe policy pathways and which include financial systems are probably punitive for this kind of investors, and they're not finding it easy to come into this in the space of impact investors in the tourism industry, particularly to support and work with communities. Innovative technologies to enhance tourism development are growing. I think the biggest beneficiaries in this space are MSPs or SMEs because the digital systems and technology have allowed them to become credible, have credible payment systems, have credible digital booking platforms that gives confidence to the travelers. So technology is actually removing barriers for these small businesses, which is an issue in sustainable tourism development. And it's going to accelerate. We can see that this is accelerating in the coming years. What technology can do is amazing. And small and micro enterprises are going to be some of the biggest beneficiaries in this space. So in terms of status, we're saying this is spreading and spreading very fast. It has gone past the emerging stage and it's going into the developing stage. It's becoming a signature in how sustainable tourism is evolving. Now, we talked about policy reinforcement that is going to happen in 2026. I think in Kenya, we have seen policy reinforcement for accountability. Now, all businesses registering, renewing their tourism licenses or registering, now it's mandatory to belong to a tourism association. It's a way of controlling standards and also the quality of service that is provided. So policy is reining in, and it's going to rein in, even in a little while, it's going to rein in on greenwashers in the tourism industry as well. So that is one of the biggest examples that we have on Kenya's policy. I mentioned the National Tourism Strategy, that the strategy is rich in the SDGs. It's aligned to the SDGs as well. So policy reinforcement, the discussions came out in Kenya again last year on tourism development. Where should development happen? We know there is a challenge between national policies or regulations and county level tourism development. And this must be harmonized in the coming years so that a county does not approve a development and then later on it becomes a problem and the national policy or regulator is trying to explain what could have happened in that particular case. So policy is going to rein in on sustainability. We know that for a long time, sustainability was voluntary, but we are now seeing that more and more it is being regulated. Green skills development remains challenging in terms of status. In the tourism industry, we think that it is the vocational training institutions that are trying to work out green skills modules in their tourism training institutions. We have not seen this at the highest level like universities, but where we got the diploma colleges and certificates and lower level, we have seen their interest and appetite in rolling out short courses in tourism that are focusing on green skills, and they are actually developing particular green skill modules in their organizations. So this is something that will potentially explode in the next few years. Climate action remains challenging, very, very, very challenging. And the challenging bit of it is in the accountability bit of it. The setting out measurements of status of where organizations are, reporting, coming out with action plans, and taking action is very challenging. A lot of organizations are in this space where we have solar lighting or we have planted trees or we are doing that. But real investments but that is backed with plans that are tracked every day in terms of climate action is still at very low level. Maybe because the accounting practices are confusing. Let me use that word, or maybe to say they are also emerging. Carbon accounting practices are also emerging, and guidance is available. Let me mention that STTA has a guidance toolkit But when you look at the sector level within the tourism industry in Kenya, if you went to the ministry and say to the Ministry of Tourism, give me guidelines on how to manage climate and how to manage, how to come up with a climate action plans and how to do carbon accounting in my business, I believe they will not be able to do that. So and then there are not even guidelines on which accounting practices are endorsed and acceptable by the ministry. So that remains a big challenge. So overall, when we look at 2025, we can say that there is some momentum. There was momentum, but there is a challenge when it comes to tangible evidence for a number of these practices. As I mentioned, we will have this report available on our website. Thank you for being here with me. I will quickly move into the trends for 2026. Are we still here with me? Give me a thumbs up so that I know we are all here and we're all engaged and we are all engaging. Thank you for being here. I'm looking.
Good afternoon. We are in.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. I'll continue into the trends for 2026. As we look into 2026, I want to start from what I said in my opening remarks, what we have seen with Trends 2025. We can confidently say that when it comes to sustainable development of tourism, we can say that we are still at a crossroads. There are many things that are not clear. They're not clear to operators, they're not clear in policy, they're not clear in practice, they're not clear in training and learning. Everybody's trying to do something, but we can say that we are still at a crossroads in the continent, right? Remember, I talked about consolidation, the terms that I said that we should take a note of as we go through today's discussions. So why are we saying we are at a crossroads? We're saying we're at a crossroads because we have those challenges in value-based development or value-based tourism growth. Value-based tourism growth is challenging because the variations in policies for development, where to develop, ecosystem management. I mentioned all of them, community integration, climate action, right? So we are at a crossroads, yet we are drawing closer and closer to a year of accountability as an industry. So what can we do and what do we see emerging in 2026? First and foremost, I must emphasize here that there is need for consolidation and verifiable impact of tourism. The net impact of tourism must be measured. And so we are calling, again, I'm repeating, we are calling. This is a call to action for the industry, right? Is that we need intentional net positive outcomes from tourism. We need intentional reports that show with verifiable data. I will speak a lot about data because it's one of the trends. So we're calling for collaboration and we're saying the industry must be intentional. All right. So onwards to my to the impacts. Just give me 1 minute. Onwards to the trends that we're talking about in 2026. Number one on top of our list is that impact measurement and data integrity is not questionable. It's no longer an option. Impact measurement and integrity of data. Today, we see a lot of inconsistent metrics. These inconsistent metrics are undermining trust and slowing action by all actors. Because industry, everybody's looking across the shoulder and say, if so-and-so is saying they're sustainable, even I am sustainable. I am more sustainable, right? So we need to go into a consolidation. We need to go into standardized. The word is standardized, transparent data is the foundation for credibility. Without standardized, transparent data systems, data collection systems, data management systems, data reporting systems, we do not have a foundation of credibility. And this is a challenge to the industry today. That is why if Kenya wants to write a tourism impact report using the SDGs as a framework today, there is data all over. There are companies that are writing things and doing things and winning awards and doing everything. But it is impossible to put together verifiable data that cannot be questioned. So we must move. There has to be a move towards impact measurement with integrity of data. And it will require that destinations, businesses, companies, organizations adopt standardized, transparent data systems as the foundation for credibility. So today, if you tell me that I am this level of sustainability certified by this organization, I should be able to say that the framework that we have used, the standardized data framework we're using is SDG. The standardized framework we're using is GRI. The standardized framework we're using is XXX. And this is how this data is collected. And this is how the back end of it looks like in a dashboard. That is a foundation for credibility. But today we see inconsistent metrics, right? We can see a lack of trust in sustainability, which has made so many actors. It is slow. It is painfully slow to look at the uptake despite the level of knowledge that we have today. So what is our call to action for the industry? Leaders, operators, companies, policymakers, we are calling on to you today to adopt transparent, verifiable reporting frameworks that will help the industry operators and players to report with integrity. To report with integrity. The call to action for the industry players, professionals, and actors is to help to adopt transparent, verifiable reporting frameworks so that we can all feed into these dashboards when we call ourselves eco something or labeled or whatever it is that we have heard. We have on the back of it, right? Transparent and verifiable data that can feed into a global dashboard, into a Kenya national dashboard. And Kenya can confidently pick data out of it and say, this is the status of sustainable tourism in Kenya. And this is the data that supports the same. The second trend that we're going to observe is that there's going to be a shift closely related to data. There is a shift from awards to credible reporting. It is good to have awards. Very good to win as many awards as we can and collect them. But if you win so many awards and I come to your company and I ask for the back end of your data, to show me your data for the last 5 or 10 years that has enabled you to win this leading company or this most something company or this top something thing, those things, I ask for the data that you have collected in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, because by the time you are leading, you can't be the leading in sustainable tourism when you started sustainability in 2023 and you're here today and there's no, you see why these awards are manipulatable. Yeah, and there's a question of credibility behind them. So as we move into accountability, we will see a shift from awards. Awards are good, but make sure that there's credible reporting and data behind it. So reporting systems must replace manipulative awards. Yes, some awards are manipulative and even they're manipulatable. Particularly if you win an award where you've been asked to pay a certain amount of money and ask people to vote for you, that's a manipulative award. That's a manipulative award. It is not about what you have done. It is about who knows you and how many people you can rally your followers to vote for you. Sustainability cannot be run on manipulative awards. The identity of a destination is at stake when what we have on our tables are manipulative awards. It is at stake. The identity of a whole destination, a whole continent can be at stake. So when we have thousands of awards later, after many years, it is emerging that this is not the ultimate. It could be desirable for motivation of the company. You're being motivated from a certain quarter, from a certain organization, but it is not the ultimate. The ultimate is credible reporting, and credible reporting is backed by credible data. So what is our call to action to the industry? We are saying in this years leading to 2030, there will be an emphasis on reporting, and reporting that is backed by systems. So we are calling, this is the call to action. We must champion transparency over recognition. We must champion transparency over mere recognition, even as a country, as businesses, and as destinations. Number 3 trend that we are sharing today is the rise of value-driven travel. Destinations and operators are being challenged to expand, to grow with the times, to expand with times. There are what we call in sustainable day-to-day sustainable tourism discourse things, right? Yeah, that people are no longer traveling to see things and to just tick boxes. People are traveling for value. People are traveling for value, and that value can be in heritage. The value can be in wildlife. You see, when I'm traveling because I value wildlife, I'm not just coming to see another elephant and another lion. I am coming to connect with the story of the place and how these elephants and lions have managed to survive in this ecosystem, why they're here today, and what it means for my travel to come and see them. So travelers are increasingly looking for meaning. Meaning, this is what we mean by value-driven travel. And how we give this meaning to them is important. It can be in who we employ and work with as our guides and interpreters. Have we trained them? Do they know how to tell the stories of place? Right? What is also we are learning from this rise in value-driven travel is that what for a long time has remained at the bottom of the experience value chain. You know, we've got every destination has an experience value chain. In Kenya, when you look at our experience value chain, we probably have a beach and wildlife at the top of it. In between here, maybe it's urban adventure and many other things. And then at the bottom, we have culture and heritage. That is the truth about the experience value chain in Kenya's tourism industry. But value-driven travel is actually telling us that it is time to take care of some of the things that have been at the bottom of the experience value chain, because this is what is giving meaning to what is at the top of the value chain. There is none that is greater than the other. We need all of them, and we need to build on all of them. Then we will give our travelers the value that they are looking. So because of this, we've seen a growth in heritage, ancestry, cultural, faith journeys, historical journeys, all this kind of discovery journeys that bring a self-awareness into people are going to be important when they are merged with any other offerings that they have. Because this travel is about belonging, it's about identity, and it's about deep connection. So when we do our itineraries going forward, we must begin to think about how do we communicate this in our itineraries? How do we integrate them into our itinerary? So that instead of having, I'm probably going ahead of myself, instead of having that one long trip that only takes me to the wildlife place, what other discovery experiences can I have along the way? So the call to action for the industry for this trend is to design products and services that connect travelers to meaning and identity, to deeper belonging and identity. Number 4 of our trends is on community stewardship over integration. When we talk about communities in tourism and communities in sustainable tourism, right? For a long time, the community, right, did not own this narrative. This narrative came from third voices, and the narrative was driven by those who are talking, who are facilitating the integration. As we move towards the year of accountability, integration is changing meaning. Today we are saying that integration is about stewardship. The community voice, there has to be a balance between the community voice and other voices in the narrative of community integration. We must find a balance. Currently, it is in balance. Other voices are stronger. When we talk about community integration, sometimes we find that the private sector voice is louder. They do not allow for the voice of communities. They do not allow for testimonials and the voice of the communities. We see a lot of NGO voices and other people's voices. But we're now saying it is time to give stewardship. The trends for the future is to give stewardship so that communities begin to define what impact means for themselves, not only to be integrated externally. That stewardship becomes governance, that integration becomes governance, so that communities can also say, we are truly part and parcel of tourism on our land. We have not been invited, we are not beneficiaries. We are part and parcel of tourism in our land. And so the call to action for the industry here is to empower communities to become stewards, not participants and beneficiaries of tourism. The narrative and the voices must be balanced so we can hear the true voice of communities when it comes to sustainable tourism development. Number 5, for a segment of tourism that is growing very fast, MICE is a segment of tourism that is growing extensively and is growing very fast. But we're saying that going forward in the trends that are being observed is that adaptive MICE spaces will emerge and must emerge because most of the time MICE is locked out in cities. You find it in mega cities, in big convention centers, and countries and destinations. Africa, everyone wants to build another convention. How about taking a meeting space and building it in community areas? How about using the spaces that are existing, improving on spaces? A lot of countries in Africa, depending on how, in Kenya we talked before independence, you'll find that there are community and social halls that were built by the colonial administration for spaces of community interaction. These spaces can be adopted for MICE. They can be used to distribute MICE opportunity, right? To generate revenue and benefits. Particularly the people who will benefit the most from adaptive MICE spaces are going to be the people we call creatives in the tourism industry. That dancing troupe, that women group that makes baskets, the ones that are not able to make it into big convention centers, the ones that don't have necessary papers and whatever, so that they can do a call, they can tender to be in a particular space, or they have not found their ways into the national databases. But when events come to their spaces, right, they become co-owners of those events, co-creators of the experiences. So the biggest beneficiaries of adaptive MICE within the community are going to be the creatives in those particular spaces. So we're saying the call to action for destinations and countries is to invest in inclusive, community-based event spaces, not just build another convention center in the city of Nairobi and Mombasa and Kisumu, but also go into where the communities are and provide opportunities for them to benefit from this fast-growing sector. Then there's a blended capital for tourism development. Remember in trends for 2025, we talked about impact investors, right? They are going, impact investment is going to continue, but we are seeing more of what we call blended capital, right? Blended capital means that you qualify for capital and investment and partnerships, not just because of your economic performance, but also because of your social efficiency. So capital will blend value. Yeah, value will be blended into capital so that capital will be accessible, probably more affordable, yeah, accessible in more affordable ways for those who are able to demonstrate, right, that they are socially efficient enterprises. They're going to become more bankable going into the future. We've all heard about green finance, and it's growing exponentially. What does green finance look for? It's looking for those who are providing solutions, right? Green solutions for the planet as well. And they are getting affordable, they're getting accessible. Let me not use the word affordable. They're getting accessible capital. So there will be accessible capital. Yeah, what we call blended capital for tourism development. It's an area that is going to grow very fast for those who are socially efficient. So we're saying tourism companies that deliver efficiency in social impact are becoming more and more bankable. So what is the call to action? The call to action is to align investment with social and environmental returns. And this call to action is actually for those in the capital space, so that they can help us to accelerate the uptake of the SDG ahead of the year of accountability in 2030 by aligning available capital and accessibility to capital with social and environmental returns as well, not just economic returns. I mentioned MSMEs. That was part of the trends in 2025. In 2027, it's becoming 26. It's becoming evident that MSME integration is being driven by digital innovation. Many of their barriers for doing business will be driven by digital innovation. We have seen it here in Kenya. We have seen that a lot of small tour operators are scaling. They're scaling consistently because there are digital platforms that enable them to do business. Whether they are joined the Travel Agents Association and they can sell tickets, right? They can do different payment systems that are available, digital payment systems that have become available to them even without having credit cards. They can still access and make payments with the digital platforms, the digital spaces that have enabled them to make their businesses visible at very minimal costs, right? Little budget social media allows you the space to reach the audience that you want to reach. And what governments and others can do is to support these MSMEs, because there is already the digital integration that is happening very, very fast. And so policy, training, and development should come all together to help them to accelerate. Why do we consistently talk about MSMEs when we're talking sustainable tourism? Because we can't run away from the fact that in this continent, in Africa, for example, most of the businesses, more than 70% of tourism businesses, are classified as SMEs. More than 70% of tourism businesses in Africa are classified as SMEs. So there is no destination government that would want to grow tourism and not pay attention to SMEs. There is only so far that they can go with that 25% or 20% of the market, of the businesses and operators. There is only so far. So by not integrating and supporting integration of MSMEs, most destinations in the continent of Africa are actually limiting the growth of tourism in the countries. By focusing on 25%, you're losing on 75% of opportunity. And I think it will be very naive in this time and age of anyone, of any destination, not to pay attention to SMEs in tourism as part of sustainable development of tourism. And grateful to the digital innovation that is already accelerating this. Now, the call for action is to not just support, the call for action is for policymakers to support MSMEs with accessible tech solutions, but also, I would add also policy solutions that are going to help them to scale. And when they scale, that gap that exists in the global south and north when it comes to tourism development and the percentage of the global tourism pie that Africa gets will not grow if we do not if we do not allow the MSMEs, if we do not accelerate them, if we do not intentionally, through affirmative action, support them to become stable and growing businesses, right? Then we've got a big one that is coming, authentic storytelling. Authentic storytelling. Marketing is moving beyond, we know we had moved beyond glossy brochures to real-time connection with travelers, real-time connection. And I know Kenya knows that this happened recently, much of Africa, where we got an influencer from the US visiting this country. And the level of engagement, the millions of people that were glued and connected in just a short period of time, and the exposure of a country in a day, and it's just about 2 days, in alternative products together, combining everything. That was a lesson to the world. I read somewhere somebody saying that this is how marketing has become humanized. I learned that during this visit, that this is how you explain humanized marketing. So marketing is no longer detached. It's no longer about those objects and nice pictures and whatever. Marketing is becoming humanized. And storytelling is part, authentic storytelling is part of humanizing the marketing of tourism and the promotion of tourism and the promotion of your brand and the promotion of the experiences that you are offering as an operator. Authentic storytelling and impact dashboards. You see, when this influencer was visiting, everybody could tell real time how many people were following him, exactly where they were and what they were doing and what they were saying. This is what we mean by authentic and real time impact dashboards. We must create them. Technology is enabling us to do this kind of things. That even our travelers, our visitors, if you're a tour operators and you have a group on safari, that we can track your group and what they're doing and the experience, and they can communicate and tell their story. It is not for you to wait until the end of it so that you tell their story. Authentic, real-time storytelling is a trend, and it's going to be supported so that as many more people can join in the story as it happens real time. So we saw it recently with this influencer that has been visiting a number of African countries. So the call to action here is that the industry and marketers, right, must embed impact data in storytelling, must embed impact, real-time impact data in storytelling. And I know that is evolving and it's happening very fast. In terms of accommodation and infrastructure development, a very interesting trend is here, what is being called mid-scale excellence, right? And if you ask me about mid-scale excellence, I will tell you that the short-term rentals, right, what a lot of us call Airbnb, short-term rentals are beginning to develop into mid-scale excellence. They have moved from basic, the basics are available, but you can also find mid-scale excellence in short-term rentals because there is a different traveler. They still want luxury, but they're also conscious. They're environmentally conscious. So luxury is actually being remodeled to become redistributed. So luxury is being remodeled in a way that you can find it in many places where your stay, the stay of a traveler, contributes to that community. That's what we mean by redistributing. But luxury is being remodeled into a distributive, environmentally viable mid-scale excellence. That's what this trend is all about. And it's all about, it's being driven by what short-term rentals are able to do, the range that they are able to provide by remaining within the communities at the same time, right? So as demand for short-term rentals increases, it reflects a need for a balance between price and value. That's what it is telling the industry, that people are looking for value, but they still care for price. And so where do you find the balance? And this is where this mid-scale excellence has found a niche, and it is growing very fast. So the call to action is that the destinations should find a balance. The developers and planners in destinations must find a balance for development of mid-scale excellence properties that will promote a balanced growth and also redistribute tourism benefits and opportunities. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, sorry for keeping you here for long. Last but not least is that we are going to see Gen Z driven travel patterns. These are very interesting travel patterns by the Gen Zs. They want short, frequent. Instead of saying, I'll wait for 1 year or 3 years to go into that one long trip to Africa and spend 7 days or 10 days, they're actually looking for opportunities for short, frequent travels. And these short, frequent travels, also, when they go on them, they want multi-stop. They want to stop several times. So it's not a point A and then a long drive point B and then another long hours and point C and another long, right? And this travel trend is actually said that it's going to boost domestic tourism, right? And that's for Gen Zs in countries traveling within their countries, but even for those ones traveling abroad, the multi stops is going to create opportunity for different people in different places, small towns, to come up with something that can be enjoyable for travelers on the go. So it will still boost domestic tourism, whichever way you look at it. But it is driven by this generation that you are not going to tell to go on 4 game drives, morning, afternoon, sit down, morning, afternoon, sit down in between. We're talking short, frequent, multi-trip stops. So if you took me on a game drive on Monday in the morning, I went on an early morning. Then I came back and was just lounged around and went another one there. And you want me to do that for 3 days? This is not the itinerary for this generation. So we must adapt offerings to these Gen Z social discovery driven journeys, social and discovery driven journeys. Make it exciting, make it about many things, not about one thing. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. These are our trends that we are seeing for 2026. Our overall call to action is that we must move from fragmentation to consolidation. I will not belabor that point. I have spoken much about it, right? When we look at these trends, they actually reflect a sector advancing but still fragmented that is looking for fragmentation. So the next 4 years are critical for consolidation and accountability, and tourism must overall demonstrate net positive impact, not just growth, right? The next steps are yours for your action. Normalize sustainability in your practices, right? Build trust in the data, right? Work to redistribute tourism opportunities and benefits. Collaborate across sectors to deliver net positive impact. This is a call to action to all of us. This is what you can do. But we're also saying that if you need support with aligning with any of these trends, right, you can reach out to us at STTA and we will work together to develop an action plan on a strategy on how you can move towards being compliant, right, as we move towards 2030. Thank you very much for being here with us. I was honored to speak with you. I would also want to conclude by taking opportunities to invite you to Sustainable Tourism Africa Summit 2026 in May in Kenya, Naivasha, 14th and 15th. Registration is ongoing at events.sttakenya.org. We will explore some of the things that we have spoken about here, trends, particularly stewardship, which is part of our theme this year at STARS 2026. Thank you so much for being here and for listening to me. If you're still here and you have a moment and you have a question or you have a contribution, I would love to hear from you before we call this webinar to a close. A press release and these notes and this recording will be available to all of you on our social media platforms, and the recording will be on our YouTube channel, probably by close of business today or tomorrow. Thank you so much for being here. I'm here waiting for your comments. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, Stacy, for your comments. Any questions that are coming forward? Anyone? Let me see. Good morning. Let me see if I have. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Marina, for your comments. Jackie, Nahid.
Judy, as we're doing this comment segment, maybe we can ask people to have their cameras on so we can take a quick screenshot, picture of everyone who's here. Yeah.
Thank you. If you're willing and want to be part of this, thank you for being here. Thank you, Alan, for your comments. Thank you, Professor. I didn't know you were here. Thank you for the sacrifice to be here. I'm your student, so I know I'll get feedback after this. I'm looking forward to the feedback after this from my professor. Yeah, some of you had to wake up late in the night from the US. Thank you, Nathan. It's a sacrifice for you to be here. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
I see many of you. Thank you so much. I see the entire team of Let's Go Travel here. Alan, thanks for being here. I appreciate all of you, right? Yeah. My former CEO, Jackie, at Kenya Association of Women in Tourism. I appreciate your continued support, my chair. Right? I wouldn't mention all of you, but I really, really appreciate that you have come and we have done this together. Hence, I hope you got your photo as we were speaking.
Yeah, we got the picture. Yeah, we got the photo. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Team London Life.
Can I just answer to Jacqueline's comment, since that she asked whether there is my question is, there are any collaboration with the education system to include sustainability in the public school curriculum? This will ensure children own a sustainability narrative. Now, I'm talking with Mahat as the chair of the World Committee on Tourism Ethic of UN Tourism now, not as a professor from Nottingham University. And one of the things that we will be working in the next program of work is exactly trying to put together a toolkit for education institution at different level to try and embed sustainability and sustainable tourism, particularly for those locations around the world where tourism is one of the pillars, to actually guide some of the thinking and some of the conversation. So if there is anybody who is working on this topic, right, particularly based on game playing, there are some people working on legal utilization for, legal game playing and things like that. Please do get in touch, because we would like to put together a set of case studies to guide the conversation. As I don't know how many of you know what the World Committee on Tourism Ethics does. We're not a regulatory, but we are a facilitator to actually support organization to embed in their practice sustainability, and education and skills development is certainly one of the priority of the next 4 years, which is going to be under my leadership. So just something that might be of interest to the community.
Thank you, Prof, for helping me with that. I saw Nahid has asked, would be great to get your take on the EU false claims directive. I will say something and also we will hear from the professor. But we all know that EU passed a directive on false claims, which is every type of greenwashing, yeah? From green crowding to greenwashing, to all the greens that we have. There are about 6 of them, ways in which people are actually making false claims. And now in those countries where the law will be passed, it will be criminal to make a claim that you cannot verify. And that is why we're talking about credibility of data. being very important. You cannot ignore credibility of data. And we know that our source markets for many of our African destinations here in East Africa, Southern Africa, we've got large markets from the European countries. And by extension, if the person you're doing business with has false claims, no, it is upon you to verify because you're selling to that product or service to your clients, yeah, through a median organization. It is the responsibility of that European organization to verify that the claims that are being made by that company in Kenya, in Nairobi, are actually credible. Now, if the consumer sent by the European company to Kenya reports and comes back and say these were false grain claims, the European company cannot say, I am not to blame. The law applies to them. They sold a product to their client or a service to their client. They gave the client false information. And what will that mean for us in the continent where we depend on this market? It means that we must take seriously, and that's why we use the word intentional. We must move towards credible data. And these dashboards where somebody can actually verify that you have been tracking, there is a system. It is not guesswork. These things are no longer optional. They might look optional in the short term, but they might be barriers to markets in just a little while. They could become barriers to access certain markets, and that will even shrink the tourism pie for the African continent. It will shrink it further from what it is today if we are not compliant. So these call to actions are real, and we need to take action on them. Professor, I don't know whether you want to add anything on this. Professor Marina?
Well, there is probably a very simple example that you could use to actually respond to that question. In my travel, in my extensive travel in Kenya last year and the year before, it appeared to me there were quite a few hotels and resorts which still showcase their travel life accreditation. But when I actually went and digged into information about it, for some of them, either the accreditation had expired or was in progress, right? So having a photocopy of a certificate on your entry in your sustainability window of your hotel, that could be potentially something that can get you in trouble, because particularly if you operate with the EU member states, that could actually mean the end of potential business, because operators operating in Europe then would be liable for potential repercussions. So effectively, there are some very simplistic things. Or one other thing that was probably embedded, and I'm sure in the more in-depth conversation you will have, Judy, in the next few webinars, one other things that it was obvious and very evident to me, particularly in some of the coastal Kenya facilities, there is a lot of fallback position into all-inclusive, which are not sustainable practices, right? And effectively, what can happen if you claim that you work with the local community, right? You will need to be showcasing how you work with the local community, because employing members of the community on very low salaries and working conditions which are questionable is certainly not a question, is not really a credible, accountable way of doing sustainability, right? And the last point, which I've really made a point at the beginning of the conversation when Judy was actually presenting on greenwashing, is a call to action which has come to my heart in the last few weeks, because I got really upset about the African continent becoming once again land for conquering by some extractive companies and practitioners from global north organizations. And I mean, I speak like this because I don't know if everybody knows. I've been working in Africa for the past 25 years, and I've worked in 50 destinations, 27 countries, and I feel probably more African than European. And I still operate in contexts where I'm always very careful and open to be told otherwise. But one cause that is very much at my heart right now is to call for action for people working in the continent and making sure that you don't fall into the trap of trying to reinvent what sustainability is. If we have a problem with understanding what sustainable tourism is, let's fix the problem. Let's not come up with new names for it, because that is going to create even more problems for how the communities are going to engage and understand whether they want to engage in tourism, right? We come up with, we can use new approaches. If we want to do it in academia and in our writing of papers and reports, go for it, right? But coming up with a lot of new names, and I'm not going to be specific, some of you may know what I'm referring to. Please be careful not to fall into the trap of become new trainers of new concept and new practices, because that's not going to help the cause of what we've been committed for so long to. And this is something that I've put my face to. I've denounced it to the UN Tourism and the World Committee of Tourism Ethics as well in the last meeting we had. We need to monitor when greenwashing is happening also from practitioners who push for their own agenda, their own interests to enter the market, like the African market. Then let's keep our eyes open and let's not that allow to happen.
Thank you for that, Professor. You and I always say sustainability is a contested space and a contested term. It's a contested term, and when anything is contested, there are people who try to take advantage of it, right, for their own personal gain. So we have to be alert and awake to that as well. And we are alert and awake to that even as we do this webinar. We are saying we are accountable. The principle and the practice is known. We are not redefining the principle and the practice. We're just looking at the systems to make it work. That's what is important today. So anyone who's still taking us back to try and define meaning actually is in a different time zone as we speak today. George asked me to comment on the space of cultural tourism. I think what is key in cultural tourism and has been for a long time, but remains elusive, is authenticity, right? There is need for authenticity in cultural tourism. We need authentic storytelling, right? We need to know what is accessible and what are the boundaries when it comes to. So it's about the consumption patterns today. Today we see a lot of performative performances when we talk about experiencing cultural tourism. And George, I see from your profile here that you are from a lodge. And I know the easiest thing to do is to get some local people to come and do a dance during dinner. And then that is culture. That is part of it, but it's a performance. It says very little about the people. And if you have been in those dances, most of the time they're not even introduced. You just sitting and you suddenly hear a group coming, and they're jumping and they're dancing and they're going round and round and going round and round, and then they disappear. Or you do that at the fireplace. How is that cultural interaction? How is that cultural interaction? Yeah. So George, we're looking for authenticity. We are looking for immersion. We are looking for connections, and this can only be achieved to a large extent through storytelling and engagement. But we are also saying we should be clear on what is accessible in terms of culture and heritage, and what is not accessible to the public. So one of my best practices I normally tell everyone who's doing cultural tourism is that you must have a community license for access. And that community license must give you some terms and conditions mutually agreed. How do you access us? When do you access us? What can you access about us? And how do we want to be represented? Yeah. Whose voice do we want to hear? When we go to those cultural villages, whose voices are we hearing? Whose stories are we telling? I would say that in short, George, but if you join our course on engaging with communities, you will learn more about deep cultural engagement, or that adds value to the community. and also to the visitors at the same time. Thank you, everyone. I don't see any other questions. You've been amazing. We will continue these conversations. Please, when you see them online and you have a question or you want to talk to us, reach out to us on our medias, our emails, our numbers, and we'll be happy to engage with you. And I know I will see many more of you at STARS 2026. Thank you for being here. Blessed day. Have a graceful year again. Bye for now.
One more thing. Our next webinar will be on the 17th of February, so keep that in mind. We shall be hosted by Judy and Shami from Travel for Purpose. So we look forward to seeing you there. Bye-bye.
Bye.